Mikhail Masa video, subscribe and like the video. Bakongo Mysticism, the power of envy in ancestor worship. The power of Kindoki that we have just described in its possessor derives from the blood community. This consanguinity allows them to dominate the vital spirits of a relative, without the intermediary of any magical object. This power is of the same order as that employed in Lokampanda, and in the Loka that prevents the conception and life of children. Proper Kindoki is of a different nature. If it is congenital, it does not derive from blood, but from the Mfumukutu, this kind of double of the soul that we described in Chapter 1. If it is acquired, it is through Nkisi that it is obtained. The inherent power allows not only to dominate the vital spirits of a relative but also the life and goods of anyone. It is effectively limited and combated only by a superior power of the same order, that is, derived from a more powerful Nkisi. Anyone who has Kindoki, whether congenital or acquired, is called Ndoki. The Ndoki exercises their malevolent power primarily at the expense of the life of their fellow human being, relative or stranger. They kill not with weapons or poison, but by their own power, and it is said they eat their neighbor. In the past, 99% of Bakongo patients were believed to die as victims of Ndoki. We say, such a person has pneumonia, they say, they were struck with pneumonia, Lobansi Bantel. We say, they died from a snake bite, they say, they were struck by a snake, equals Nyoka Bantel. We say, they fell from a palm tree, they say, they were made to fall from a palm tree, or they were taken by the palm tree, equals Muba Bambwizity, or Muba Bantel. We say, they are dead, they say, they were eaten, Banditi. This, they, refers to the Ndoki. But the Ndoki also exercises their malevolence on others' goods. They make goats, pigs, and chickens disappear, inflict diseases on them, or kill them directly. They can transfer the peanuts from a neighbor's field to their own, J. The behavior of the Ndoki. Humans are divided into two classes. The Bandoki and then the Basembi Banki Bambwezi, three names to designate the good ones, those who do not have Kindoki. The Ndoki does not behave like a normal person. Their nervousness is reflected in their face, they have an extremely mobile mask. They change place constantly to escape the fetishes of the village or the house, not only at night when they come to dance in front of the huts of their future victims but even in broad daylight. They cannot stay still, they cannot maintain the perfect stillness, the attitude of complete rest that so many black people like to enjoy for long hours. The Ndoki has the double gaze, Talazol. In the past, children with crossed eyes would disappear. Currently, this infirmity in adults at least prevents normal relations. The Ndoki can kill with a single look, Disu Difwa, they have a homicidal eye. They can, with their bright eye, fascinate their victim to the point of depriving them of all ability to move and even of consciousness. A simple bad potion, a mere touch, a simple agitation, or even a single word is enough to kill their opponent. They have two tongues, meaning their great outward friendliness serves only to better conceal the poison and venom they are filled with. When they invite someone to a communal meal, and it is customary, they will present the dishes with their dirty hands and untrimmed nails. The unfortunate person will soon feel their head burning, suffer violent abdominal pains, and find it impossible to sleep peacefully. The Ndoki has its own food, they eat humans. They strike their victim stealthily and once they have sucked their blood, they abandon the corpse. Sometimes, however, they substitute the body of a goat, leaving it to rot and extracting a new magical force from the putrefying flesh. The Ndoki primarily covets and targets young girls, without them realizing it, they strike them in advance with sterility. Thus, they appease their hunger, just as ordinary humans feed on meat and vegetables. The eyes of the dying Ndoki remain wide open, and it is futile to try to close them. Their corpse emits a characteristic odor. As for themselves, they become one of those malevolent spirits that roam the earth and are used by perverse Nana to influence their fetishes to the detriment of poor mortals. These Ndoki spirits can traverse the air, Thus, at the sight of shooting stars, black people exclaim, "Look at the Ndoki and the Ngangandoki coming to trade with humans." How one becomes Ndoki. An old chief told me, on the express condition not to reveal it to his peers, how one learns Kindoki. Those who want to become Ndoki seek out an experienced old man who has cut bat heads in half. They bring him a gourd of palm wine and say, "This is to make friends." A few days later, they bring more wine and other provisions and discuss the news of the day. Only after 2 or 3 months, when relations have become very intimate, will the visitor dare to pronounce the formula, "I want to become Kindoki." The old man will then prepare a potion made from certain herbs and will give it to the candidate to drink. After this ritual, they will be admitted into the circle of Ndoki and will begin their training. The candidate will have to endure a series of tests and initiations, proving their ability to dominate spirits and use their power malevolently. As part of this training, they will learn to cast spells, make potions, and use fetishes to harm others. They will also learn to disguise their true nature, appearing friendly and trustworthy while hiding their malevolent intentions. Once they have completed their training, they will be fully fledged Ndoki, capable of using their power to dominate and destroy. The Ndoki lives a dual life, blending into the community while secretly practicing their malevolent arts. They are always on guard, constantly moving and changing their appearance to avoid detection. Despite their powers, they live in fear of being discovered and defeated by a more powerful Nkisi or another Ndoki. The life of a Ndoki is one of constant vigilance and deceit, using their powers to manipulate and harm while maintaining a facade of normalcy. They are both feared and reviled, living on the fringes of society, always seeking new victims to satisfy their insatiable hunger for power and control. Kindoki, in its true form, is derived from the community of blood of its possessor. This consanguinity allows one to dominate the vital spirits of a relative without the intermediary of any magical object. This power is of the same order as that which is used in Lokampanda and in the Loka, which prevents conception and the life of children. True Kindoki, however, is of a different nature. If it is congenital, it does not derive from blood but from the Mfumukudu, that kind of double of the soul we described in Chapter 1. If it is acquired, it is through the intermediary of an Nkisi that it is obtained. The inherent power allows not only to dominate the vital spirits of a relative but also the life and possessions of anyone. It is effectively limited and combated only by a superior power of the same order, that is to say, derived from a more powerful Nkisi. Any human person who possesses Kindoki, whether congenital or acquired, is called Ndoki. The Ndoki exercises their evil power mainly to the detriment of the life of their fellow human beings, whether relative or stranger. They kill, not by weapons or poison, but by their own power, and it is said they eat their neighbor. In the past, 99% of Bakongo patients were thought to die as victims of Ndoki. We say, such a person has pneumonia, they say, they have been struck by pneumonia, Lobansi Bantel. We say, he died from a snake bite, they say, they have been struck by a snake, Nyoka Bantel. We say, he fell from a palm tree, they say, they made him fall from a palm tree, or they took him from the palm tree, Muba Bambwizity, or Muba Bantel. We say, he is dead, they say, they have eaten him, Bandidi. This, they, refers to the Ndoki. But Ndoki also exercise their malice on others' property. They make goats, pigs, and chickens disappear, inflict diseases on them, or kill them directly. They can even cause the peanuts from a neighbor's field to come into their own field. Behavior of the Ndoki. People are divided into 2 classes, the Bandoki and then the Basembi Banki Bambwezi, 3 names to designate the good ones who do not have Kindoki. The Ndoki does not behave like a normal person. Their nervousness is reflected on their face, they have an extremely mobile mask. They change places constantly to escape the fetishes of the village or the house, not only at night when they come to dance in front of the huts of their future victims but even in the middle of the day. They do not stay still, they cannot maintain the perfect immobility, the attitude of total rest that so many black people enjoy savoring for long hours. The Ndoki has the double gaze talazol. In the past, children with crossed eyes were made to disappear. Now, this infirmity among adults at least hinders normal relationships. The Ndoki can kill with a single glance. Disu difwa, they have a murderous eye. They can, with their shining eye, fascinate their victim to the point of rendering them unable to move or even making them lose consciousness. They only need a bad potion, a simple touch, a simple agitation, or even a single word to kill their adversary. They have two tongues, meaning that their great outward friendliness only serves to better hide the poison and venom they are filled with. When they invite someone to a communal meal, which they customarily do, they will present the dishes with their dirty hands and untrimmed nails. And the unsuspecting person will soon feel their head burning, be tortured by violent stomach pains, and be unable to sleep in peace again. The Ndoki has their own food, they eat humans. They strike their victim stealthily, and once they have sucked their blood, they abandon the corpse. Sometimes, however, they substitute the body with that of a goat, leaving it to rot and extracting a new magical force from the putrid flesh. The Ndoki primarily targets young girls without their knowledge, striking them in advance with sterility. This satisfies their hunger just as ordinary humans feed on meat and vegetables. The eyes of a dying Ndoki remain wide open, and it is a vain effort to try to close them. Their corpse emits a characteristic odor. As for them, they become one of those malevolent spirits that roam the earth, which perverse Nana, healers, will use to influence their fetishes to the detriment of poor mortals. These Ndoki spirits can cross the air, thus, at the sight of shooting stars, the black people exclaim, "See the Ndoki and the Ngengendoki coming to trade with humans." How one becomes Ndoki. An elder once told me, under the strict condition that I would not reveal it to his peers, how one learns Kindoki. Someone who wants to become Ndoki seeks out an experienced old man who has cut bat heads in two. He brings him a calabash of palm wine and says, "This is to form a friendship." A few days later, he will bring him wine and other provisions again and inquire about the news of the day. It will only be after 2 or 3 months, when the relationship has become quite intimate, that the visitor will dare to pronounce the formula, "I want to become Ndoki." The old man then takes him to a place deep in the forest, which he alone knows, and performs the ceremony which involves cutting the heads of several bats and sprinkling their blood on various parts of his own body. During this operation, his limbs are covered with leopard fur. His double returns to the village to resume ordinary life, being careful not to eat the flesh of clawed animals. The man leopard goes his own way, hunting, devouring goats and pigs, and sometimes even human beings. When a leopard has taken small livestock from the same area multiple times, the locals set traps to catch it. If these efforts are unsuccessful, they resort to the magabu fetish. Here is how the Nana excites it. Listen well, Magabu, see who has once again turned into a leopard, fear not what he says, break his claws and pierce the leopard. The man who stole our goat, Magabu, you will designate him, Tumbula. The man leopard will soon be seized by the fetish and will die. How will it be known? Simply because goats and pigs will no longer disappear, and no traces of the leopard will be found in the vicinity. Each village knows numerous stories, both old and current, where people were killed by these human beasts. Let it suffice to mention 2 cases, which will provide a specimen of this legendary literature. A few years ago, a woman from Boko was crossing the Nkisi River by canoe. Carelessly she let her arm dangle outside. Suddenly, in the middle of the crossing, a crocodile emerged and grabbed her hand. On the verge of being dragged away, she kept her composure, grabbed an axe, and struck it on the shoulder so violently that it had to let go. A few days later, in a nearby village, a man was dying from a wound on his shoulder. It was undoubtedly the injured crocodile. Another leopard multiplied its misdeeds in the same region. One fine day, however, it was hit by a gunshot but managed to escape, Yet, it happened that on the same day, a man was seized with terrible suffering, he had severe wounds on his chest and arms and died soon after. Could one doubt for a moment that this man was the leopard? Congenital witchcraft. One of the main elements of Bakongo psychology, as we have seen, is the Mfumukata, literally, the Lord of the Ear. This fourth component of man, which is neither body nor soul, which comes from afar when it enters the newborn, and returns to afar when the man dies, which causes fainting, fuangambu, when it temporarily leaves, and causes certain dreams when it performs its nocturnal exploits, which is the normal cause of sleep by its absence, just as it is the normal cause of hearing and sight by its presence. This Mfumukutu also explains the most mysterious thing, namely, the evil power called Kindoki. For there are Ndoki children, and they do not even know it themselves. Such a person is born Ndoki because the Mfumukutu that has taken residence in them is bad. His bad Mfumukutu made him Ndoki, as the late Chief Mbemba affirmed. The Bakongo distinguish in a person a double element, one exterior, corporeal, visible, the other interior, psychic, invisible. It is the invisible element that makes the visible act. It is itself composed of two principles. 1. The Mfumukutu, mysterious, comes and goes, and makes the person conscious or unconscious depending on whether it is present or absent. But moreover, through it, a human can communicate with the other world, live and act with spirits in a sphere superior to normal humans. It is through it that a human being can transform, so that, while maintaining their ordinary outward appearance, by their inner principle, they transform into a man-beast. The other psychic principle passes at death into another body and is transplanted into another environment. This new state of being is not subject, as one is here on earth, to ordinary laws. The human being in this state can transport themselves wherever they want, take whatever forms they want, and exercise a marvelous power for good, like the Bakulu, or for evil, like the Ndoki Matibo. Weapons and medicine. The intimate nature of Kindoki is unknown to anyone. Acquired with the help of an Nkisi Unibai, an unknown bad fetish, or innate because a bad Mfumukutu has penetrated the child, it remains equally mysterious. But the Ndoki can be recognized by the diviner and combated by Nkisi, fetishes. No one will ever tell us the origin of the first Nkisi, but in the current society of the Bakongo, the extremely imposing apparatus of Nkisi is set up and directed primarily against Ndoki. The fear of Ndoki has led to the invention of dozens of Nkisi whose sole purpose is to defend normal people against the power of death and destruction called Kindoki. In the past, at the death of an important person, the diviner was consulted, and 9 times out of 10, he would indict. Envy is terrible. Envy breeds hatred and malice. One must hear our people describe, in their concrete and picturesque language, the mining work that envy does in the heart and mind of a woman. She has lost her children one after another, she thinks sadly and solitarily about the little corpses rotting in the bush, and here she hears the joyful cries of the neighbors' children running to meet their mother returning from the fields. Or consider the state of mind of a man whose goats and pigs used to come back from the savannah every evening, filling his enclosure with noise and his heart with joy. Now they have disappeared, taken by disease or eaten by the leopard. This man goes to his cassava field in the morning and sees his neighbor's herd of goats frolicking. Returning to his hut, he refuses the food his wife offers, remaining infinitely thoughtful and sad, for his heart has turned evil. Envy engenders Kindoki and prepares poison. For there is poison which plays a significant role. Poison mixed with fetishes and poison without fetish. Various plant poisons, mixed with leopard bile, and mixtures of liquids obtained through unspeakable infamies. These poisons are contained in containers smaller than a thimble, wrapped in a small rag like the amulets that the natives wear. A tiny pinch, held under the nail, deftly placed on a glass, a plate, a tool, or anything the victim will touch, and death will do its work. I have said that belief in Kindoki is universal. It is objected that fetishists do not believe in their fetishes. Among the fetishists, there are many charlatans, and the greatest among them are the diviners. But there are Nana who firmly believe in their art because they obtain results, either through the drugs they administer or through the confidence they inspire in the patients. Besides, sick fetishists get treated by their peers and pay fees like ordinary mortals. In 1926, I baptized a chief, an ex-fetishist, who for several years had kept the entire country on edge with his propaganda for his new fetish, Dambesai, a so-called prodigious defender against Ndoki. This Dambesai had brought him a small fortune. He himself did not believe in it at all and was deceiving the world. But he believed staunchly in Kindoki and wore other fetishes to defend himself against Ndoki. Magic and social life. The brief description we have just sketched of the main forms of Bakongo magic calls for a complement, not to explain them logically, but to assign them their place within the whole, a summary of social conceptions, that is, of Bakongo's social life. This life is collective, with its hereditary laws and defenses that maintain it in an unchanging current. It has its social and religious organs with its magical forces that defend it against internal and external enemies. The community that lives and makes the individual live is called Kanda. It is the clan, equivalent to what for us are the paternal home, the family, and civil and religious society. The Kanda clan is the living, organic, and mystical whole of all the people, who descend, through free women, from the clan's root mother and bear its name. It includes two classes of people, the ancestors who live underground and their descendants who live under the sun. The ancestral tomb is the passageway from the second class to the first. The ancestors form the predominant class. They are the masters of their descendants, endowed with superhuman power. They are the true owners of the land, while their descendants only have its use and usufruct. They live intensely, and the terrestrial clan's life depends on them. It is thanks to them that women conceive and give birth, that livestock prospers, that fields yield crops, that palm trees produce wine, that forests and bushes offer game, and that streams and ponds provide fish. They make their descendants live and combat agents of death, evil spirits, and Ndoki, whom they prevent from exercising their destructive power. However, they grant their protection on the condition that their descendants observe their laws and perform the traditional cult. The second class of the clan consists of the terrestrials, Bansi, who live in the sun on ancestral lands. The clan occupies many villages, according to the number of lineages formed over time. Each segment of the clan has its village, its independent life, divided into as many hamlets as there are lineages in the village. The village's chieftaincy belongs by right to the most direct descendant of the eldest line's root mother. The chief is primarily the priest of the ancestor cult, Nana Bakalu, on whom the clan's and individuals' prosperity mainly depends. He is the guardian of the sacred basket, containing relics of all ancestors who played a role in the clan's history. Every 4 days, he performs prayers and libations in their honor. He is the master and, in a sense, the usufructuary possessor of all his lineage members, especially the women. He represents the village before men and spirits because he is on earth the representative of the primitive ancestor, his direct heir. In this capacity, he somehow summarizes all the clan's interests and powers. The clan is based on uterine kinship. The child belongs to the mother's clan, and the mother belongs to her maternal uncle. Around the age of 10, children leave the paternal home, go to live in their maternal uncle's village, and stay at his service until marriage. The Mukongo thus knows himself as a child of both father and mother, who generate the child's body. From them, he gets his blood, where the soul and life reside. He feels dependent on them, like a child tied to his mother's back. But father and mother are not independent beings. All the mother's sisters and brothers are mothers, Nkisi, to the Mukongo, Nkisi Sakila or Nkisi Nkasi. All the father's brothers and sisters are fathers, Maize, to the Mukongo. He feels connected to the double chain of the maternal and paternal clans. With his mother's clan, he feels a bond impossible to express with our European concepts. It is a deep sense of dependence, solidarity, and participation that our individualism cannot grasp. This felt participation in the clan's real life, the clan of ancestors and the living that are one, gives the individual a sense of strength and security and, at the same time, a feeling of weakness and fear, depending on whether he thinks of the powerful favorable ancestors and kind relatives or the ancestors who could be Ndoki and the relatives possibly jealous, malicious, and Ndoki. All the Loka and Lakana within the clan that we described is integrated into this feeling of the ascendant's superiority over the descendant and the reciprocal sense of dependence and weakness of the inferior towards the superior. Listen to the farewell formula pronounced by an elder before his younger brother's corpse. On the third day, my younger brother is dead. But what I say, my elder Moisen, I possess, if I ate him by Kindoki, but if a stranger ate him, do they enjoy while I remain solitary? Oh my younger brother, where you are going, if Nzambi took you, it is nothing, but if a man took you, make him follow you. This elder appeals to his right of domination over his brother, wronged in this right, he urges his younger brother, now among the ancestors and endowed with superhuman power, to take revenge on the presumed cause of his death. Recourse to Nkisi, recourse to ancestors, two poles of the sphere where our Bakongo move. Anyone who wants to leave this sphere is, they think, either mad or wicked, and the wicked man, know it, is the one whose heart, swollen with envy and hatred, becomes Ndoki, despising the living, the ancestors, and Nzambi himself. To them, the world they live in is a magical world. They move in it comfortably. Thoughts and feelings, words and actions, individual life and social life have long been arranged and harmonized within it. Their astounding ignorance has taken the shape of science, a science where contradictions and gaps have blurred to the point of being merely more or less obscure parts of a vast system. They remain confined in this system as if in the tranquil and assured possession of truth. Try to dislodge them with direct argumentation, and they will look at you as a specialist looks at someone he knows is incapable of understanding. Only education, combined with religious and moral progress, can modify and ultimately uproot magic. Mikhail Massa video, subscribe and share.